All right. Welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast, a show where we dive deep into strategies behind starting and building consistently profitable businesses. Whether you're a founder, a leader, or just a curious dreamer, this podcast is a toolkit for making profitability your default setting, not just a lucky outcome. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton. Today, my guest is Jason Swathwood. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hi, Matt. How are you? We go way back.
We do. I don't think we've talked for a while, but I was thinking about that. We probably met back in 2003 or 4.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably about right. So that's what my Indiana University math says, 22 or 3 years at least.
Yeah.
When you were with that other guy.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I think you were 1 or 2 businesses ago as well.
That might be selling me short, probably 3 or 4 ago. But yeah, certainly, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, but when I was taking Sandler sales training with you, I was in the middle of our really entrepreneurial phase, and my wife and I built, a nice business together, and somebody introduced me to sales training, and that's how we met. And, it was very expensive, but well worth it. And still use it to this day.
Which is good. So why don't we start with introduce yourself, kind of give us your story, and then we'll kind of roll through your businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously Jason Swathwood, lifelong Indianapolis resident. Well, Carmel. I've lived in Carmel probably now longer than I lived in Indy, but haven't moved very far. Pike High School grad, went to Indiana University where I met my lovely wife, Leslie, who you know, and went from IU Bloomington I went to law school here in Indianapolis. And first thing I did was went to law school right after college because quite frankly, the job market was horrible. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Didn't necessarily know that I wanted to be a lawyer forever, but I knew it would be good training. I don't know. I've always been a student of politics and history, and that's what I majored in college. And it seemed like every powerful person in the world and every influential politician or mayor or governor or senator had a law degree, whether they actually practiced law or not. So I said, all right, well, I don't really want to be the assistant manager at a drugstore coming out of college. So let's go get a degree and see what we can do with that. And after a whole lot of things after that, here I am.
So you get out of law school. How long were you ever a practicing lawyer?
Yeah. So when I got out of law school, the job market was still pretty bad in the mid to late 90s. I graduated law school in 97, and the job market was fairly poor. However, I've always been a good networker, getting myself involved in things. When I was in law school, I joined the Columbia Club, which allowed me to meet a lot of influential people. And so I used that networking to where I think I had about 4 job offers coming out of law school, and a lot of my cohorts had 0. So I felt pretty good about that. Some of the opportunities were not as good as the others, but what I ultimately decided to do was I took a job with Irwin Financial Corporation, poor bank that's no longer around, but a 160-year-old bank at the time that was based in Columbus. Same family that founded Cummins Engine started Irwin. And I worked as an attorney in their mortgage division, which was in Indianapolis. And I got to do a lot of business-related activities alongside the law part of it. So I really enjoyed it for a long time. I was there, I think, 6 or 7 years, and learned a lot about how to operate a business and run a business, and was involved in all kinds of high-level decisions, which was fun. But during that time, my wife and I, my wife's an event planner, so she had been planning weddings and large events for a long time, and she had a corporate marketing job, couple of them, and we started a side business publishing a wedding magazine and producing wedding expos, and that business just evolved and grew very quickly. And I kind of figured out that I was losing money by going to work. So after a period of time, I decided it's time to take the leap and We went from 1 bedroom in the house to 2 bedrooms in the house to no employees, from no employees to we hired our first contract employee, and then we moved to a small office, which became a bigger office, and with the help of a lot of hard work and a lot of things that we ultimately grew that business into about a 14 employee, $3-4 million a year business, very good margins, and rode that thing until we decided to sell it in 2000s. Well, we sold it in two pieces, 2007 and 8. And, yeah, a lot of that growth was
So
due to sales training for sure.
yeah. So let's go back to what year did you actually start it then?
So that business started the pre-planning started in 1999.
Okay.
It was a franchise business called The Perfect Wedding Guide.
Yeah.
And, we opened our first franchise in Indianapolis in 2000, and
Okay.
I left my job at the end of 2001. So we kind of ran it. She had quit her job. I was making a decent buck as an attorney, so we needed an income, obviously. So
Yeah.
I stayed for about a year and a half, and then that's when things just really started snowballing, and we saw the opportunities, and I ended up quitting. So
So what in 1999 when you decided you were going to do this, what was it that really jumped out? I mean, obviously your wife has the event planning experience, but you're
yeah.
an attorney. Like what is it that makes you look at this business and go, "Yeah, this is it."
Well, it's funny because in my spare time, I was trying to help her grow her business, and I just saw all the marketing vehicles that were out there, and I couldn't stop saying to myself, "There's got to be a better way." There's just not a really good vehicle to get the word out. You know, Most people have no idea. Now, if you have a daughter, you figure it out quickly when they get married, but people have no idea the wedding industrial complex that exists in this society, and it's only gotten worse.
Yes.
I was in that business for in or out around it for 25 years. I'm no longer, but I mean, the average wedding in the United States is over $30,000, and when you're talking kind of more affluent people, you're talking 100,000, several $100,000 spent on an average wedding, and that money is out there, and just trying to find the clients, and we saw the kind of the need in the market and said, hey, there's got to be a way, and sometimes things you think maybe happen for a reason or fate. We got a mailing in the solicitation with a sample copy of this magazine in our mailbox. Said, hey, you guys would be perfect fit for this, and I looked at it, shared it with Leslie. She said, oh, that doesn't sound like something we would do. um, I started looking at it more, and I'm like, no, I think we really ought to at least go down to Florida and meet with these people. And so we did, and they were based in Orlando. And we went down there and had a meeting, and we walked out of that meeting. I think we went to dinner and just kind of looked at each other and went, wow, we could absolutely kill this. And so we had to obviously think about it. We're young, married, I think 4 years or so at the time. And we had a little bit of capital, but we weren't flush, and so we had to figure out how to finance it and how to make it work. And you know, we can talk about it another time. But a lot of people have enough money to maybe buy or start a business, but you also need a fallback plan. You can't use your every last nickel to invest in a business and not have a rainy day fund either. So we were trying to think
So
about that too.
so there's, this is what 180 some episodes in, and there are three things that every textbook says you need to have. You need to have a well-written and documented strategic plan. You need to
Correct.
have 6 months of savings. You need to have a clear understanding of what your prospects will buy and what they will pay you for it.
Sure.
So if you look at those 3 things, how many of those 3 things did you have?
Uh, I think we had them all. I mean, we
Well, you're the second company out of 180.
180. I've watched a few of them. I haven't watched them all. So
Yeah,
I trust you on that one. But yeah, the 6 months might have been a stretch. We might have had 4. I don't know, but
yeah,
we definitely knew that this product would work if executed correctly, and the need was certainly there because we had talked to similarly situated people that had the same frustration. The advertising vehicles that were here at the time were just expensive and not very productive. And, we kind of saw that with trying to, my wife purchased some of those services and they were awful and expensive. And they didn't fulfill the promises they made to us. And so we felt like if executed correctly, it can be done. And, we had no idea what we were getting into. I mean, my I was a little bit of an entrepreneur. My dad had a landscaping business when I grew up, and so I kind of, I mowed some yards. I was a paper boy at 10 years old, and I always had money in my pocket, so I figured out how to hustle early on. But I just thought we're smart people, we'll figure it out, and you know, through trials and errors and a lot of long, long days, we figured it out, and we kept hiring more people. That's the hardest thing is when you grow is how to manage that growth is how do you, okay, we know we need another person. We can't afford another person, but on a leap of faith, we know if we hire the right person, uh, the money will come. So, it's hard. Same, not something that a lot of other entrepreneurs hadn't focused on or had to deal with over the years either. But
So if you think back to when you started, because, the people that we're talking to really are new business owners, aspiring business owners, you know, what are some of the things that you guys had to figure out that you didn't realize you would have to learn?
sure. Oh gosh, that's a long list. First and foremost, I was a history and political science double major in college. I was really good at reading. And then I went to law school, got even better at reading and pretty good at making cases and arguments for things. But the last thing I ever thought of myself of was a salesperson, somebody who sells something. But one thing I figured out really quickly, when you own a business, I don't care what business you're in, you are in sales. You have to figure that
Yes.
out really quickly or you're not going to be very successful. You know, it's, at the end of the day, I don't care what product or service you provide. If you can't sell it to somebody, you're out of business. Right. So, um,
Well, so Lorraine Ball, I think you know
yeah, I know
Lorraine.
Lorraine. Yeah.
So her statement was, "You're not in the business that you think you're in. You are in the business of selling the business you think you're in,
Correct. Correct.
because if you don't sell it, you're not in that business."
Well, correct. And, and if you work with a lot more salespeople than I do and have over the years, but, I kind of turned into one of those people that was like, it was a challenge every day. I was, I little victories, some big victories, but every time I could sell something, I, it made me feel good. And, you know, we wanted to expand to an office. We wanted to hire more people. We wanted to buy a second franchise. All the things we just kept pushing the envelope on. Back then it was funny. My wife, and I probably still have them somewhere in a box. I would always take post-it notes and write, okay, we want to buy this piece of equipment or we want to hire somebody or whatever. Okay, well, this is how many sales I need to make in a month, broken down to how many a week, broken down to how many a day. And, I just tried to make sure every day I hit my goals. And, some days you tripled it and some days you failed, but on an average, we were hitting them and we just kept hitting them. And it's like, wow, this is not easy, but it's not rocket science either. Just
Yeah.
make some reasonable goals and try to put your feet in front of your other feet every day and make it happen. So
So what are some other things that you would pass on as advice to
yeah,
somebody?
um, well, most things, and it still applies to what I do today, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. Um,
Yeah.
it takes twice as long as you think it's going to take, and it takes twice as much money as you think it's going to take. Almost always.
Yes.
It's so, you can never have enough capital. You can never have enough time. I think one of the things that, if I had to go, I mean, I don't regret anything we've done. Certainly I'm wiser now. I do things a little differently. I let a lot of people probably take too much of my time. Time is something you can never get back. Right. So
Yep.
that's something I probably would redo a little bit, but, it, and I'm sure you may bring this up, but I mean, again, back to the sales part of it, and I know that's kind of your focus, and I'm not trying to go there just because of you. I learned so much from sales, and I still use it every day. It's not about convincing somebody to buy this thing I'm selling. It's telling them after you've asked a series of questions and really probed how you can help them solve their problems. I mean, it's not about, hey, I've got this wonderful thing that I want you to pay me $1,000 for. It's you've got this pain point that I can fix if you let me, and I can
Yep.
turn the 5 grand a month that you're spending on marketing in a black hole that you're not getting any return on into $25,000 in business a month if you let me. And I'll show you, and I'll put my money where my mouth is. I mean, I'll show you how to do it. And there's nothing more rewarding than helping small businesses succeed. You do it
Which,
every day, right? So
well, but that also is kind of what you do now.
correct, I think.
Like, so, so tell us, so you sold that business back in 2007, 2008,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Then you bounced through a couple other businesses.
Yeah. No, so we sold our large business. We closed on August 1st of 2008, and that was about 2 or 3 weeks before the stock market crashed at the end of August of 2008. So the world went to crap, and I had started another business ready to jump. I mean, spent a couple hundred grand seeding it, and the world just kind of it didn't come to a stop, but it was awful. And you know, it really made me just kind of, we had a nice liquidity event, had some cash, of course, put it in the stock market and watched it kind of bounce around, which was disconcerting. But we were fortunately, I had a 2-year-old daughter at the time, and we were in a place where I didn't have to work. So I kind of just, after fighting an uphill battle in that business that we had started, really kind of didn't go anywhere because of the circumstances. I just, quite frankly, played a lot of golf and got my handicap down to 6.5, I think. So, and at the time really thought about what do I want to do next. And so we were plotting, and we got back into a similar business that we were in, but different. We started producing consumer events. We produced uh, we did a health and fitness expo. We produced food festivals. We produced a women's expo, a few other things. And then after our non-compete ran out, we really had no intent in going back into the wedding business, but the market kind of asked us to. So we went back into the wedding business and produced wedding expos for a long time, and did really pretty well with most of that. And but in 2008, when I had sold my business, my now business partner Troy Frank with Indiana Equity. Well, we were known as a different company, but we're Indiana Equity Brokers, have been for 10 or 15 years now. And he sold my two businesses, and we became friends. And he said, "Hey, you'd be really good at this." I always thought about the fee that I paid him and said, "Well, yeah, that's pretty lucrative. So maybe I will look into it." And, the thing was, I didn't jump like right into it because the market was so bad. Nobody was selling a business in 2009 either because
Right.
there was nothing to sell. I mean, back then, if you could basically be flatlined from year to year, that was success because most businesses were taking it on the chin. So I thought about it for about a year, and then I jumped in I think 2009 or 10, and started selling a couple businesses. And basically what I do is I now represent 99% of what I do is I represent sellers of family or small businesses who are ready to exit for whatever reason. Either they are going to retire, which is one of the biggest reasons, or they are just tired, or they have health issues or what have you. But back in those early days, I sold a lot of Quiznos franchises, sandwich shops, a couple convenience stores, small businesses, and I still sell a few of those here and there by referral. But really, what I do now is I focus on selling businesses that'll sell from $1 million to $8 million, businesses that are generating, three or 400,000 on the low end to a couple $1 million in EBITDA a year. And had some really good success with that. I enjoy it a lot. I get to meet with people that built something and really are, ready to cash their chips in.
So let me ask that a little bit different than what I normally talk about with people, but
Yeah,
you're somebody that has exited a business and somebody that helps people exit businesses.
correct.
So when you think back to how you built Perfect Wedding Guide,
Hmm.
what are some of the things that you did well that prepared the business for sale? And what are some of the things that you could have done better?
Sure, sure, sure. Well, I will say, because I'm a little bit neurotic, I suppose, I did my due diligence. I read a lot of books and a lot of things about how to successfully exit a business and how to prepare to exit a business. I tell you, that's one of the things I struggle with every single day. People call me thinking about selling their business, and I unfortunately have to be the bearer of bad news sometimes, that it's not worth, at least today, anywhere near what you think it is, because there are certain metrics and certain things that buyers look at that are going to really potentially penalize your exit, at least in its current state. And so what I did was I made sure that when I sold my business, because I had done that research, I made sure our books were very clean, which is a big part of it. I made
Yep.
sure that my role was very minor to the operation of the business. I really did get to the point in the last couple of years of the business. I didn't really have any major role in the day to day operation of the business. I was more working on strategic things, making sure that all the, my people had the things they needed to get their jobs done on a daily basis. But I really just worked on strategic initiatives. Had we kept the business, I had a lot of things that we were maybe going to do, but when we decided to sell it, I, obviously wasn't going to invest a bunch of money in things that were not going to be able to be, taken forward by me, at least. I made some of those suggestions to the new owners, but yeah, so I made sure that our business was as clean as possible so that it looked, and it wasn't, you know, smoke and mirrors. I mean, it was a great business. We were making great money. I remember my wife and I saying, yeah, I said, I brought up the idea. I said, I think we should think about selling. And we'd had some issues with the franchise company. They had gotten bought by private equity, and they were really not very good people to work with. They didn't see eye to eye with us on about anything. All they wanted to do was charge us more and provide less. And so I kind of saw the handwriting on the wall. But we looked at it. It's making a lot of money. Why should we sell it? I said that's exactly why we should sell it, because it's making great money, and we can never sell it for more now than we will, or we'll never sell it later for now more than we could now. So all
Right.
those things we had discussions. But to your question previously, preparation is great. I love it when people come to me 2, 3 years in advance and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling my business. What can we do to make sure that this business is taken to the market at the most, um, in the best way?" And you know, again, not to repeat myself, but clean, clean books. Customer concentration is a big issue that we have to work with. Sometimes people have one or two big clients that are 20, 30, 40% of their revenue. And, that's great. Except what happens if that client leaves? And,
Right.
if you're the owner of the business and you've been working with them for 20 years, that's wonderful. Except when the new guy buys the business or the new gal buys the business, they don't have that relationship. And so they're getting a bank loan typically, and that client leaves. That's a very tragic event. Just making sure that the owner is not involved in every single day-to-day operation activity. A lot of owners are very hands-on, which is great, except you can't have all those customer relationships yourself. You can't have all the vendor relationships. You can't be the head of sales and marketing and HR and operations and everything else all in one hat. You need to spread some of those things out. It's not. it's not anything that a wise business person probably wouldn't see once they start thinking about it. But people that are really good at making widgets or doing this or that service, they don't do this every day, and that's why um, they need somebody, I think, like me to help them because not very often I can't get my fee back and increase sales price. Typically, I mean, occasionally maybe not, but I think I can add a lot of value. And I've seen a lot of things in the last 20 years of doing this, and probably I've learned more from seeing the failures than the successes, quite frankly.
Well, and that's I've had a bunch of clients that have gone through trying to sell,
Yeah,
selling, you know, failing to sell, coming back, trying to sell. And I think and just to summarize, the 3 things that you put out there, like have clean books, right?
right.
Understand that your sales mixture can be toxic
Yep.
if you do it wrong, if you're not aware of it. And then, we talk about owner involvement in sales, but you mentioned just the overall owner involvement.
Correct.
Like you've got to build a business that the owner doesn't have to work in.
Well, there's some sayings in our industry. One of them is, you may have $1 million in EBITDA, but you may only have $400,000 in sellable EBITDA because
Right.
that EBITDA does not transfer because, if that client is your client and the new owner, I mean, there's ways to bridge those gaps with earnouts and all kinds of things, but banks don't like them and sellers don't
Right.
like them either. But yeah, no, the business cannot be all about the owner because if that's the case, you're not selling a business, you're selling a job. Might even
Right.
be a really high paid job, but it's still a job.
Right. And so that one of the things we talk about a lot is advice for people that are just starting.
Yeah,
But really, the advice for people that are trying to sell is something that the advice for people who are just starting can apply.
I believe that. Yes, and look, I'm as an entrepreneur who started several businesses and worked 90 hours a week to get that done. You're not always thinking about the exit when you're trying to just make payroll or
Right.
whatever. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to do all these things at the beginning. I mean, look, a whale client that's 70% of your revenue is not a terrible thing when you're starting. You got to pay the bills. But as your
Right.
business matures and you start thinking about selling down the road, you've got to alleviate that in some way that a buyer would not freak out and go, wait a minute, if I lost that one client, I'm screwed, you know? So,
Yeah.
and I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with my family. My father-in-law bought a business. He's a Mensa and a Northwestern grad, one of the smartest people I've ever met. He bought a business with customer concentration, and 50% of his business walked out the door the first year he owned the business. He was able to survive, but it was not easy. And
Yeah.
I don't ever want to see somebody else do that either.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah.
All right. So, it's been a quick 28 minutes, but, the question I like to end on is if, 2026 Jason could go back and sit down next to 1999 Jason and say, hey, by the way, you're opening the business tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? I'm from the future. Everything works out. It'll be great. But when you go in, while there's a million things you can do, here's the one thing you need to do first. What would that one thing be?
I think the easy thing to do when you start a business is chase dollars. And I think a couple things. One, not every sale is a good sale. Not every client is a good client. I wish I was quicker at firing clients back then as I am now, as I
Yeah.
matured to be. And then also, don't focus on the money so much. If you do a good job, if you provide a good product or a good service, and your clients truly get benefit from that, the money will follow. Okay, I mean, it really will. And the other, I guess, maybe one other thing is, I see a lot of businesses that I work with now. They haven't raised their prices in years or what have you, and you've got to maintain margins. I mean, maybe not every single year do you have to raise prices, but if you're charging $1 a widget now and you were charging that in 2019, I mean, I'm here to tell you costs have gone up and you're
Yeah.
making a lot less money on that dollar now than you were then. And you're cheating yourself. So, you know, all those things I think are important, but yeah. And I think I knew them back then. I was probably just too stubborn to listen to myself.
Well, that's the amazing thing about most mistakes is we all know how to avoid them and we go into them at full speed.
Well, I always try to say I like to make original mistakes, not the same
Yeah.
ones again.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Not always successful, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it would be nice to screw something up new occasionally, but it feels
Yes.
like
Well, I do that all the time. Occasionally I
yeah,
make the same mistake more than once too, but I try not
yeah,
to. Yeah. So,
yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap up. So
well,
in show notes, we'll have ways for people to contact you, information about you, some books that you've recommended. Um, thanks for being a guest.
oh, man, it was fun, man. That flew by. I'd love to do it again if you'd love to have me back.
Yeah. And if you like what you're listening to, there's 3 ways you can help. Leave a review, hit subscribe, share an episode. We'll be back next week. Until then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.